It's Thursday. That's what I was going to say. This week is just going by like crazy. It is Thursday afternoon here at Radio Next, Jennifer to the rescue. And you have found us on the Cool Groove. I'm so glad you did. We have a great show today, and we just want to thank you for tuning in on Radio Next. Thank you for allowing us to be here every week and share these great resources and great people. And we have a great show today. We have a couple different people in the house right now, and Renee, I don't know where you are, but Renee with Elite Coordinators will be here, co-host. We have Michelle Mayer with actually the Director of Outreach Services at the Office of the Indiana Attorney General's Office. I can't believe we actually got you. It seems like you would be out everywhere, like just sharing all kinds of things because that's what you do. Protecting the consumers, right?
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this important information with your listeners.
I'm sure. We also have Barb Hook with Hook Connect, who's going to join who's joined the Radio Next family. She's going to be here all afternoon today. She gets to share her wisdom, and it's just kind of cool because you always check the Attorney General's office website, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And we hope to get someone from the Attorney General's office on our show, which starts next Wednesday. So we'll try to get that booked while she's here.
Yeah, I was just saying, this is kind of convenient. You know, you're both here in the studio at the same time. So, Michelle, like I said, we've been talking for a little while. I know more about you, but the listeners do not. So tell us a little bit. You are the Director of Outreach Services. And tell us about how long have you been there? How did you get there? Can you do that?
Well, I have been with the Office of the Indiana Attorney General since Greg Zeller was elected back in 2008. So one of the first initiatives that he started as a new Attorney General was establishing outreach services section. So I've been overseeing that since 2009, since he came into office. So it was my job to take the services of our office directly into communities. So I have a staff of, there's 5 of us total, and we travel all 92 counties. And we average about 650 events a year. So we are looking for creative ways of getting into the communities and taking what we believe to be very important information out to the consumers here in Indiana.
Wow, that is a lot of... Now, what did you do before that?
Well, I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, and prior to that, I worked for the U.S. Senate for 12 years. And Attorney General Greg Zeller and I worked together in the late 80s for then Senator Dan Quayle. So he and I had worked together to do outreach back then, and it just made sense for me to come in and set up this program for him because I already knew how to do it. Now, back in the 80s, we didn't really have internet and the World Wide Web, and there's so many more opportunities out there to get our message out and our important information. So I really love working in the Office of the Indiana Attorney General with Greg Zeller, and he and I have been together for a long time, and I really take pride in knowing that on a daily basis we are doing good for our state.
I think that's kind of a cool story. I mean, not kind of. That's a cool story. That's a great. They obviously have the relationship that was not something you just started in 2009. You have the history, and so you got to stay home for 10 years. How many children do you have?
I have 2 children. I have an 18-year-old who's away at college now, and then I have a freshman, a son, who plays just about every sport there is. So when I'm not traveling the state or in my office, I'm usually sitting in the stands somewhere watching football, baseball, or basketball.
Good for you. That's really cool. You said something the 10, and then I was thinking of the 10 years that you were at home, which obviously any of us that have stayed home with our kids know that that's not just sitting at home in front. But you were out there getting scammed. Or potentially.
My husband owns a business, so I am his accountant. I do all of our books, and we've had a graphic design business now for, just about 25 years. So I stayed very busy and, was enjoying working with his business as well. So
wow. How do you do it all? It's amazing. I know that the common scams, or the consumer protection, is really what you're all about. And the common scams, you see internet, phone, and mail, all kinds of things that you're doing. So we have kind of an outline of what we're talking about today. What would you say? I mean,
let's talk a little bit about the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General for the state of Indiana does a number of things. He's responsible for so many different areas. We have over 400 staffers. 150 of them are attorneys. So we're almost one of the largest law firms in the state, technically, with 150 lawyers on staff. And I think obviously a lot of individuals recognize and know that the Attorney General is the attorney for the state of Indiana. So if there's a need for litigation against a group from the state, then we're going to be handling that. Or if the state is sued by someone, it's the Attorney General that handles those matters. But we also cover many other areas. Anytime a bill is introduced in the General Assembly, our advisory staff actually reviews the legislation and the wording to make sure it goes along with the current Constitution and is something that can be added to our laws. That is our advisory section. We also oversee Medicaid fraud in the state. We have a Medicaid fraud unit located up in the Castleton area. We have investigators all over the state that go out and investigate matters of Medicaid fraud and elder abuse. We also oversee Indiana unclaimed property, or the state's lost and found. We are the only Attorney General in the country that has this assignment. In most states, it's the treasurer who is responsible for, passing out the lost and found to the rightful owners. So if you are in need to find out if you have any lost money out there, you can go to our website at indianaunclaimed.gov. It's totally free. If you find something, you fill out the claim form, and we will send you a check. And then finally, I work out of the Consumer Protection Division, which is the largest section of the office. And initially, consumer protection was established so that individuals who were not satisfied with a consumer transaction had a place to file a complaint. So let's say someone comes and puts a roof on your home, a contractor, and several months later the roof starts to leak. Well, you try to get the contractor back in, and for some reason he doesn't return your calls, or he just keeps putting you off, and it's important to get that roof repaired. So you bring in somebody else, and they point out to you that, hey, this was not applied properly or installed properly, or the materials that were used were shoddy and not really of the standard that you purchased on your invoice or your statement there. So you can file a complaint with our office. You can go right to our website at indianaconsumer.com. It's a totally free service. We will contact the roofer on your behalf and initiate a consumer complaint and say, this is what the consumer is upset about, and we give them so many days then to respond back to us. And usually we get very good responses. We have individuals, the roofers, willing to go out right away and get it repaired or send a refund, whatever. These are free mediation services that we provide, and we still provide those services. The problem is when someone has contacted you and they have conned you into sending them money, and you file a complaint with our office, there is not much we can do for you. There is not a legitimate business address or telephone number of someone that we can contact and try to mediate between you and the con artist to try to get a refund. So that is very frustrating to us, and that is why we created the Outreach Services Program, so that we can get out front and educate the residents of Indiana, so that as soon as they get that telephone call or the letter or the email or the pop-up on their computer when they're surfing the net, that they know not to send money to strangers.
Wow. I actually had an event one time where we were about to send money out of the country. I can't believe we were going to do it. We didn't do it.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Because I probably would be crying right now.
And they tend to go towards a lot of elderly people when they do that, because they are so gullible and they don't know any different.
Yeah, that's, and I laughed at the beginning, not because of, but I know that Barb Hook talks to people all the time, or, the roof thing is, I know she can tell her story, but I know that's kind of like hits home with you, doesn't it? Because of you'll be telling that story, I'm sure, many times on your show coming up. So you, as the consumer, you're out all over the place, and you're telling people all about all kinds of different scams. There's internet, there's phone, there's mail, and the money, sending money to strangers. You can't recover it, so don't send money to strangers.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't need money if they're a stranger, right?
Right. if more than likely, if someone's going to try to collect money from you, you need to be very careful and step back how they're asking you to send it. And you have to realize there's a lot of, with all the new technology that we have, especially our older citizens, they think that if they wire money, that they're able to recover it if there's a problem. Let me emphasize today that if you're trying to send money through MoneyGram or Western Union, we cannot recover that money for you. If you look at those forms that you go in, when you fill those forms out, there's a disclaimer and a warning right there in the middle of the form, encouraging you, individuals, do not send money to strangers. If you do not know this person, do not wire them money. When you wire money, usually the caller will do the research ahead of time. They're very helpful. They've already looked up your address. They'll go right on the computer and direct you and give you the address of the closest either Western Union or MoneyGram office for you to go to. A lot of times these locations are inside Walmart or inside a Kroger grocery store,
right.
And they will already do the research and tell you exactly how to get there and how to go send the money. When you send money through a wire service like that, the individual can pick it up anywhere in the world. So you give them a passcode, that's all they need, or a passphrase. They do not sign anything. They don't leave a thumbprint, a telephone number, a copy of a photo ID, nothing. So it is like Casper the Friendly Ghost picking up that money. They leave no footprints, no fingerprints, nothing, and there's no way for us to recover that money for you. Plus, if the transaction's going to another country, which most of these scams are generated out of another country, we call them cross-border scams. So they're across the ocean, outside our borders. We have no law enforcement authority there. So we don't have the capability of sending someone over to Jamaica or the Bahamas once we figure out where the money was picked up. And most of the time, these individuals have stolen someone else's identity anyway. They're not going to sign their name or disclose who they are when they pick up. The money is totally gone. It is like sending cash in an envelope. We cannot get it back. Now, there's another form of money transfer that they love to use because they don't have to leave their home or wherever they're working out of to go pick it up. And these are called Money Pack or Green Dot cards.
I was going to say. Okay.
Now, Green Dot recently, they're getting a little bit of a bad reputation, so they're kind of changing their name, I've heard recently, to Vanilla cards.
Vanilla?
Instead of Green Dot cards. Vanilla's the new word, the new phrase. But what you do is you can purchase these in the gift card section at Walgreens or CVS or Walmart. They're $4.95 each. So you can load up to $500 on each of those cards. So you go to your financial institution and withdraw the $2,500, and then you drive over to Walmart and you buy 5 of these cards and load all $2,500 onto that card. Then you go home and the fraudster calls you and instructs you to scratch off the gray box on the back of each of those cards and relay the 20-digit number to them. Now, they're sitting at a laptop computer overseas somewhere, and they're going to input that information as you relay it to them and instantly transfer that money off of that card. They're going to transfer it over to a debit card or a fake PayPal account, or they're going to spend it on websites like Apple.com. That money is gone. As soon as you've relayed the numbers and they've transferred that money, we cannot get a refund for you.
You know, I'm not laughing. I'm just like...
Same thing?
Yes, MoneyPack owns the Green Dot cards. That's the same company.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we still want to talk about personal checks, and we have all kinds of things to talk about. So don't leave, because we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back, and thank you, Michelle. I'm just like, oh my gosh. If you're not tuned in, you're in trouble. Call all your... We're here. We're just talking like crazy here at Radio Next with Michelle Mayer of the Indiana Attorney General's Office, and she is the Director of Outreach Services. And we also have Barb Hook, who's on the hook, and she's definitely on the hook today. She's here to be right directly in touch with the Attorney General's Office, and she used them for all of your
research.
All your research.
Yes.
Yeah, all your research. I am just speechless because I'm in the presence of these 3 wonderful women, including Tracy in our engineering department, who's making sure everything goes very smoothly. You know what, Michelle, we were talking about the importance of not sending money to strangers, which when you say it, it sounds like, why would you do that? But it is really easy to fall into that. We hadn't really talked about the personal checks. You gave us a lot. Tell us about personal checks. Why would you not do that?
Well, you know, many years ago, that was probably the safest way to send money, was using a personal check as opposed to putting cash in an envelope. But if you step back and you look at your personal check, what is on that personal check? The most important information about you. There's your name, your address, a lot of times your telephone number, and on the bottom is the routing number and your checking account number. And since there's so many of us now doing online banking and we're able to do so many things through the computer, it's not a good idea to share with a stranger your routing number and your checking account number. It's much safer to go get a money order or something like that to transfer money, not to use something that's going to disclose your personal accounts. What we have found many times, when you send someone a personal check, If they're trying to scam you and they're just going to cash the check, then they've stolen whatever amount of money you wrote the check out for. But many times, if you get caught up with a group of fraudsters who are trying to defraud several people at one time, what they might do is what we call wash your personal check. So they're not going to cash that check. They're going to wash who you made it out to change what it says. And what they do is they just use a simple solution of acetone, which is fingernail polish remover, and water. And they dip the top half of the check into that solution and then dry it with a hairdryer. And they keep your signature intact. So you've sent them a personal check, they don't cash it, they turn around and wash it and change who you made it out to and many times how much money you made it out for, and then they send that on to another victim that they're trying to con and send them your personal check. It could go anywhere in the world, and then you don't realize it till you get that canceled check back that they changed the amount. They might even save it for a year or two when you're not expecting it, and then go and use that. Or they might try to create some fake checks using your account information that's on the bottom. So do not use... Now, I don't want to scare your listeners. Please,
well, you
go
scared
ahead.
me.
Feel comfortable paying your bills. If pay your light bill, your electric bill, your Kohl's charge card, your JCPenney charge card, your mortgage, your car payment. You're putting that in an envelope that's pre-addressed to a legitimate company. I am talking about sending a personal check to someone that you do not know and you don't have a way to verify if they're legitimate.
Wow. I hadn't even thought about all this stuff.
I got a question, Michelle. Do you think it's safer for a person to do online banking direct with like Chase's My Bank, or to actually mail a payment? Because I've always had this fear that it wasn't going to get there if I mailed it versus doing it electronically. It could get chewed up by a machine, or what do you guys suggest?
I would never suggest anything for that question, just because it's ever changing.
Okay.
If you transition into talking about internet safety, that's a whole new category, and that's fine. The most important thing with those type of transactions, you could get harmed more by sitting at a computer and doing that type of business if you don't have like a secured password.
Right.
If you're doing it from home, make sure you have a password on your Wi-Fi. If you're using a Wi-Fi system in your home, make sure it's password protected. If you don't want to sit at Starbucks and use the public Wi-Fi, or if you're traveling, use the hotel's Wi-Fi system and start doing important transactions like that.
Because that's normally open and everybody has the password.
Exactly. And what I have been recommending to individuals lately is, if you're going to pay bills online or something like automatically like that, you might want to use an account that doesn't have as much money in it. And a lot of our older residents, they got a little skittish a few years ago, and they pulled a lot of their money out of the stock market because they'd lived through the Depression, and they saw that they didn't, this is their retirement money. They're living in retirement now, right. So they need their money now. They didn't have an opportunity to wait 20 years to build it back up. So what they did is they put a lot of that cash into their checking accounts or their savings accounts. So if you're going to use a very popular system of paying things, a convenient system of paying things online or doing the automatic bill pay, use an account that doesn't have all of your retirement money socked into it. Use an account that just has a smaller amount, maybe a few $1,000s in it, as opposed to hundreds of thousands of dollars that has all your retirement money. Does that make sense?
Like a household operating account.
Right. So if somebody does get access to that system, or if there's even a mistake that's made, sometimes, innocent mistakes are made, that money's not coming out of your full, there's not as much money for them to get.
Right.
To withdraw. So that's probably the best recommendation I can give as far as that question.
I love how good she is at what she does. I'm just listening. She knows exactly what to advise, but not to give us more than what we need to cover what we're covering today, Barb. So you've got so many things that you can take their office and probably do so much with your show that's debuting next week, by the way.
Yes,
pretty exciting. Yes. tactics that fraudsters are using. Fraudsters, I love that, but that's a horrible word, but it's such a funny word. What are they doing? How are they convincing us? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, why would I send money?
Absolutely.
To somebody I don't know. But you know what? Like I said earlier, I almost did it.
I can guarantee to you that most of your listeners are sitting there shaking their heads saying, I would never fall for that. I would never send money to a stranger. You would be surprised. One of the tactics that they use is they manipulate the caller ID, and they change the words that come across the caller ID, and they change the telephone number. So they try to impersonate an official government agency or office or a law enforcement office to try to trick you into thinking that you're talking to an official person or someone from your bank or someone from your credit card company. So the first thing I want to warn your listeners about, do not use caller ID to validate phone calls coming into your home or into your cell phone. Be very careful. Do not feel comfortable doing business on the phone if someone's contacting you. Now, if you've initiated the call out and you know it's a number that belongs to your bank or your credit union or your credit card company or the Social Security Administration, and they start asking for personal information, then you can feel comfortable giving that. But I'm talking about incoming calls. Now, I want to give you an example of a victim that I worked with. It was an 84-year-old woman up in Fort Wayne, and she had received a telephone call on May 6th, 2011, and they claimed to be the FBI, and it said FBI right across the caller ID. They went to the extent of going online and getting a local FBI office telephone number, and they even had an agent's name that they used. I believe it was Agent Gray. So they call her up and they tell her that they're with the FBI, and they wanted to inform her that she had won Publishers Clearinghouse $4.6 million, but someone had intercepted her notification. And they had claimed the money, and they had taken it to Madrid, Spain. Now, she said, look, I wasn't born yesterday. I know this is a con. I'm not sending you any money. And she hung up. And she actually told them, I'm going to call the police and I'm going to report you to the Federal Trade Commission. She did both of those things. Several days later, they called back and impersonated a local police officer. I believe it was Sergeant Gary Meeks, which is an actual police officer up in Fort Wayne. Called back and said, I just wanted to follow up. I understand you called the department the other day, and I wanted to make sure you did not send the money because this is a con. And she said, oh, no, I knew not to send any money. Thank you so much for calling me back. So now he's established a relationship and trust with her. So then he calls back again and says, you know what? I haven't been able to sleep the last couple nights because I just jumped to the conclusion that this was a scam. So I called that agent with the FBI, and I called the Publishers Clearinghouse office. They're telling you the truth. You really won $4.6 million. And if you go ahead and send that $9,000 today, they're going to open up your file again and get that money back here for you. So, of course, she thought she was talking to a police officer. It didn't stop there. She sent the $9,000. She had to go to 3 different Western Union offices. Then they called back and claimed that an envelope had arrived into the country, and they said they were with the Port Authority through the Customs Office, and they demanded $30,000 to pay for customs fees to get that money into the country. And they claimed that they had x-rayed the envelope, and they could see inside that the content was a check for $4.6 million.
Wow.
So then she went and wired, had her bank, her credit union, transfer money to Canada for $30,000. So then they call back and they claim to be with the IRS and that she needed to pay taxes. Now later on in a later segment, I'm going to talk to you about prizes and these claims that they make for paying taxes and other fees. But the conclusion of this story, they just kept calling back. They kept saying, poor lady. She was out of money at this point. They called back. They wanted more money for state taxes. She'd couldn't get any more money. The credit union wouldn't loan her any more money. She tried to get the money from her daughter, and then the daughter got involved, and, she was out $99,000 total. But again, it's using that caller ID and gaining the trust. Now, if someone calls you and they claim to be your bank, your credit union, your credit card company, never do business on the phone. You have a telephone number right on the back of your credit card. It's printed right there. You might have to get a magnifying glass out to read it, but it's printed there. You can usually access that number 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Same thing with your bank or your credit union. Next time you go in there, grab a business card from either your favorite teller or the branch manager so that you'll have a number handy, because I can guarantee you one of your listeners is going to get one of these calls, and if they know not to do business on the phone, but to hang up and then initiate a call back to the credit card company or your financial institution, then you can feel comfortable doing business on the phone. That's how we have to conduct business from now on.
Thank God she gave me, I was feeling like, oh my gosh, this poor woman. This poor woman, yes. I mean, really, this poor woman. Michelle, we're not going to let you go. We've got to keep you for a couple more. You got, till 2 o'clock. And Barb, you have to stay around too.
Absolutely.
Okay? And Renee has decided to join. Because I always like to know where we are, and this information is just invaluable, Michelle. This is Jennifer to the Rescue, Jennifer Johnson, on RadioNext.TV, The Cool Groove, and we are very fortunate to have Michelle Mayer of the Indiana Attorney General's office here today. She's the Outreach Director of Outreach Services, and we were just covering a lot. Barb Hook is here, Hook Connect, and she's part of the Radio Next family, starting her show next week, next Wednesday.
Absolutely.
Yes, and Renee Gates has joined us with Elite Coordinators. How are you, Renee?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. When do we start taking our pictures, our selfies?
That will be
soon.
15 minutes.
Okay, in 15 minutes, so prepare, ladies. Michelle, you are just sharing all kinds of information that we're all sitting here in our jaws. Now, Barb is not, though, because Barb does this every day, too. She does it, and we're excited that she's going to start sharing her knowledge on this wonderful radio station and the Cool Groove. But, Michelle, we were talking about a variety of things, anything. Fake lotteries and sweepstakes, they're out there all over the place. We get junk mail all the time that are things I'm sure that I don't know if is that where they are? Are they in the mail? Where talk about it.
Everywhere. They can contact you by calling you and telling you you've won a sweepstakes, even though you've never entered the sweepstakes. Apparently, you've
I
won
win all the time. I'm sure that's exactly.
You might get an email. You might get something in the mail. So you might even get a pop-up on your computer if you're surfing the web and saying that you've won something, or they want you to enter a contest. So they'll find any way they can to try to reach you, to try to convince you to send money. And sweepstakes and lotteries are the area where we see the most money lost.
Really?
So I talked earlier about Zeta, my victim up in Fort Wayne, and I'd mentioned that they claimed that she had won Publishers Clearinghouse. And I want to make sure all of your listeners know that Publishers Clearinghouse, if you are ever lucky enough to win it, and I have never met anyone who's actually won Publishers Clearinghouse, and I always go out in all of my presentations, and the odds that you win it are not very high.
Really?
But if you do win Publishers Clearinghouse, I have talked to their chief counsel, and he has asked me to share with everyone that I present to, they will not call you ahead of time. They literally show up at your door. They ring the doorbell. They have the bouquet of balloons. They have the big cardboard check and the TV cameras. Now, they might be nice enough to turn off the TV cameras momentarily so that you can go get your lipstick on or comb your hair or something, but they're not going to call you. They're not going to call you from a few blocks away or from the coffee shop and tell you we don't know how to get to your house or we can't deliver this check to you unless you send us money to pay for taxes or processing fees or handling fees. They literally show up at your door, and that's how you know that you've won. Now, they are the number one group that's the most impersonated by these scammers and fraudsters. If they don't impersonate or claim that you've won Publishers Clearinghouse, they'll claim that you've won like the Australian lottery or the Irish sweepstakes or some contest in Jamaica, or you've won a laptop or a computer, like one of the little tablets, an iPad, or a brand new BMW car. Sometimes they claim you've won a pair of them, 2 BMW cars. So there's a couple things that I really want to press upon everyone who's listening. I have 2 rules of thumb. If there's 2 things that you can remember from today's conversation, it's these 2 things. And I want you to pass this on to as many people as you know. Number 1, if it is a legitimate contest and you've won a prize, you will never, ever be asked to dip into your own savings or checking account, your personal savings, to get money to send to them. If it's legitimate, any fees that would be involved, handling fees, processing fees, taxes, all of that can come directly out of your earnings. And you do not have to pay any of that up front. You can wait until you get your prize and then take care of it. If someone would win $1 million, you would need to pay taxes on that. And there's a form that the IRS provides. But if you can't get everything together to get that turned in by April 15th deadline, you can ask for an extension. So don't let someone try to pressure you into sending money because you have to turn in taxes. You can do all of that. You can wait and hire an accountant and do all of that separately. So you don't send money to claim a prize, even if they claim that you've won a car. If it's a legitimate contest, the insurance, the temporary title, or the plates, that will all be included till that car gets to you in Indiana. Once you get possession of it, then you can go and get your license plates and your title and pay your registration fees and get your car insurance. But up to that point, till the car's delivered to you, you don't have to provide any of that. Now, the second thing I want you to remember, it is illegal for you to play or win a contest in another country. So as soon as they mention another country, you just hang up that telephone. You know it's a scam. Unless you are standing on the soil at the very moment of the contest in Mexico, you cannot play any type of contest in Mexico. So if you're sitting here in Indiana and they claim that you've won this prize from another country, you know it's a con. Just hang up the telephone. So those 2 tips: don't send money to claim a prize, and you can't play a contest in another country. Those are 2 very good tips to remember. Now that you're all educated and you're waiting for that telephone call, if someone calls you and tries to convince you to send money to get a prize, and you tell them, I know that I don't have to do that, what the caller might do is say, oh, we understand your skepticism, we respect that, so this one time only, my supervisor has agreed to go ahead and send the funds out to you. We're going to front the money to you out of your prize so that you can go ahead and send us the fees. Because we have to show that you sent us the fees to qualify to win the prize. So tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., we're going to have FedEx deliver to you a check for $3,500. Now, you only owe us $2,500, but we're going to send you $1,000 extra because we want you to enjoy some of your winnings tomorrow. So you're going to get the check, take it to the bank, cash it, and then you need to wire us back $2,500 by 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. then we want you to take that extra $1,000, go get your hair done, go buy a new outfit, pick out a new pocketbook, take your grandkids out for a movie or go buy them some video games. We want you to enjoy some of your winnings. And then once we get your wired money, we'll get that check delivered to you then the next day. These checks are fake. They are either written on accounts that don't exist or they're written on accounts that would not have the $3,500. The problem is a lot of individuals think that there's some electronic banking system out there that will allow your financial institution to tell right away that that check is no good, and that is misinformation. Unless that check is written on your actual bank's account, if you bank at Chase, unless it's a Chase check, there is no way until that check comes back as insufficient funds for you to know whether it's good or not. That may take up to 6 months. Isn't that surprising? A lot of people think that if I hold a check for 10 days or if the bank holds it, that within 10 days we'll know if it's good or not. Absolutely not. It might take 4 weeks before it bounces. It might take 6 weeks. It could take up to 6 months. So in the meantime, the bank takes that money right out of your account. They're not going to cash that $3,500 check unless you have $3,500 in your own account, and that money is going to be immediately withdrawn, and you're going to get a letter because banks do not call you. They write you letters informing you that that check was no good. And in the meantime, if you've already sent the fraudsters $2,500, they've probably convinced you to continue to send even more. And you may not find out initially that that initial check bounced 6 months later.
I've been through that.
Oh, my.
Well, I didn't get scammed, but they tried that. They sent a check to me wanting me to plan their wedding. And there was a lot of misspelled words in the email and through communication. There was misspelled words. So I was like, if they have that kind of money, there was words, it was just a lot of things that I, looked at. And then so I took it to the bank and I said, they called the bank that was on the check to see if that was an account, because you are correct. They will give you the money and it takes time for it to process, and I would have been out of money because they want you to send money. So I went through the entire process, but they didn't get to scam me because I, had heard about it before. So
That's
I just
very
went,
good.
Yeah.
Well,
that is true.
I was actually, I had a, that's when I said earlier that I had almost given money to somebody. That was what it was. It was actually and I'm not going to tell who they are because maybe they really didn't know, but my bank that we bank at actually said this isn't a real check. So maybe they didn't really know that, but
some tellers don't know. They don't know how to
didn't you
determine watercolor.
Yeah, they don't. So they had to go to like their manager, and then their manager did whatever. And I said, "Can I have a copy of it?" Because they took the check, but I wanted a copy so that I could, show other planners that this was this big thing that was going on and be aware. This is what it looked like, And they will pay the money to send it overnight. They'll go ahead and do all that. So it came in an overnight envelope with the check and exactly how much they said.
Well, I just know that, but, okay, so backtrack just for a minute for me, because I'm a little slower than everybody else, but you said, though, that the bank really can't tell right off.
No, and it varies, and I do a lot of trainings with financial institutions for their tellers to kind of give them an idea, because
I see.
If you think that you've won $1 million and you go into your bank or your credit union to withdraw the money to send to them to claim that prize, you're probably going to tell your teller. You're happy, you're excited. You might even say, hey, you're going to get a great Christmas present from me this year. And they are in a position where they could really help someone not be victimized because they're on the front lines. They see the individual withdrawing a large sum of money and maybe even mentioning that they have to go wire it somewhere or asking for a cashier's check but you're going to be so bubbly, and the scammers are really good to try to convince the victims not to tell anybody. They're very good at saying you've got to keep this secret, don't tell your family, don't tell anyone, because they're going to want to take advantage of you, and you need to get your business matters in order in organized before you start announcing it. So they do that on purpose because they don't want someone intervening and convincing the victim not to send the money. But bank tellers are in a good position. But if it's a check written on account that does not exist, there's nowhere for it to go to get rejected. So it's just kind of floating out there electronically, and then it takes several months for it to finally, it's not processed, so then it comes back with insufficient funds.
I cannot believe this. Oh, well, I was very very happy to know that.
Understanding what's going on in the market.
The biggest tip that I could give somebody, just kind of get out of your own space and enjoy the people that are there and see how you can add value to them first before wanting to get something back. Kind of get out of your own space and enjoy the people that are there and see how you can add value to them first before wanting to get something back.
God gave the wise men their wings. And the 5 people that you head up to get out there and to educate consumers. And then we have Barb Hook, who's joining I keep saying joining. She is going to debut her show next week.
On the Hook, next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
I like that name.
2 to 4. My goodness.
Very catchy.
Yes, and it's very catchy. And I know you have a lot of questions for Michelle, but we've got to stay on task. Okay. Fake checks. Anything else you want to add on fake checks?
Well, the thing with the fake checks is, we talked about the fake lotteries and sweepstakes, and then we had the example of a business owner almost getting scammed because someone sent them a check and pretended like they were ordering services, and then they ask you to go cash that check and then immediately go ahead and send the money back. Now, we also see the fake checks with Craigslist for individuals purchasing things on Craigslist, and someone claims that they only have one personal check left. They're sitting out in a submarine in the middle of the ocean, and they're in the armed forces, and they need to buy a couple things back here in the States, and they need you to go ahead and buy the second item or pay for the second item by sending you a personal check over the amount of what you're charging for the item you're selling, and then asking you to send it on to a third party. We also see the fake checks just with several businesses, but also with individuals who think they're signing up for mystery shopping assignments. So if you want to be a mystery shopper, go to your unemployment office, your local unemployment office or your workforce development office, and say, hey, are there any mystery shopping positions available? Do not sign up for mystery shopping through pop-ups on your computer.
Really?
Or someone just randomly contacting you. Most of those are scams or cons. So with the mystery shopping, they're going to claim that they're going to pay you so much money every time you go visit a store or facility that they're wanting to evaluate. At first, they'll say, we're going to send you the first 3 assignments free, but after that, you have to pay us like a 25% copay. And then what happens is they start paying you for the first 3 visits, and then you start cashing the checks and having to send them back 25% of the checks. Then they send you a check and ask you to go buy specific items at a store and then ship them somewhere. Before you know it, again, remember what I said with the fake checks. Many times it might take 6 months for you to realize it's a fake check and it's bounced. In the meantime, you have already cashed $6,000, $7,000 worth of checks from these individuals, and a lot of that money you've sent on to back to them, or you've purchased items and sent to them. So you're on the hook for that $6,000 or $7,000 when you find out that the check is no good. So there's also some other scams that I want to warn your listeners about. I want to talk about the grandparent scam, where they call claiming to be the grandchild in Mexico. I've been arrested, Grandma. I need you to bail me out of jail. I just had a victim 2 weeks ago. He sent $7,000 cash to an apartment in California. And then the next day they called back and said, yes, your grandson got in a little trouble last night. Before we got him bailed out, he overheard some important information from a drug dealer that was in the cell with him. So now we need $40,000 because we need to put him in witness protection.
No way.
So never, ever send a stranger money. Always call your son or your daughter and check. I bet your grandson's asleep, safe and sound in bed. So never, ever fall for the grandparent scam. And a lot of times they already know your grandson's name. They may have purchased your information and Googled your name and telephone number, or Googled your name and address and found your Facebook page. You're friends with your grandson on Facebook, or they found your family tree at Ancestry.com, so they see all of your grandchildren's names and they can call and impersonate them or claim to be a law enforcement officer who's just locked up one of your family members. We also see a lot of fake debt collection calls. This past February, when we had those awfully cold days, we had individuals calling claiming to be with Duke Energy or a local gas or electric company, claiming that they didn't receive your payment for your bill, and if you didn't go out and get a green dot card for $200 and call them back by 3 o'clock, they were going to turn your heat off. Don't fall for these scams. The utility companies will not turn your heat off without several notices to you. There's all sorts of assistance programs throughout the state that will help keep your utilities turned on regardless. And these are just con artists trying to steal money from you. We also have the fake IRS scams where they call and say that you owe the IRS money. Again, they're going to ask for more than likely a green dot card. The IRS, they do not call you. They do not usually email you. They're going to send you an official letter through the mail. They know your name. They know your address. I received one of these suspicious emails last year, the day after I filed my taxes, and I had filed them electronically. It was just a coincidence. They were just trying to send out phishing emails to see, they wanted to inform me that I actually had a refund coming, and they wanted my account number so that they could deposit that account in directly into my bank. So I just deleted that and didn't click on anything that was included in that email. We also see the fake jury duty telephone calls. We just saw those here in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago. They actually called and impersonated local police officers and told individuals that they had missed jury duty, and again, go out and buy a $200 green dot card or you're going to get arrested. So if you do get a summons for jury duty, go ahead and show up for jury duty, especially here in Marion County. They do need jurors, but do not fall for these scams. They are not going to put you in jail if you didn't show up, or if you refuse to send $200. That is just flat out a con.
I'm kind of almost embarrassed how many of these things I've almost fallen for.
No way.
Well, yes, no, really. Well, you doubt.
Because you're a trusting person and you want to follow the rules.
That's not saying I trust people.
But they're people you don't even know.
Well, you
You never even heard of. You just get a random email or call and you're just like,
I know.
Okay.
If people could just see the looks on my guest faces.
I'll be calling you next week.
Okay, Michelle.
And then one more I want to talk about.
Yes, one more.
The fake Microsoft virus call.
yeah.
And if you haven't got one of these, then I'm happy for you, but most of us have. They'll either do a pop-up again on the computer while you're working on something. Turn those pop-ups off of your computer. Go into your settings and turn off pop-ups. Or they'll call you and claim to be with Microsoft. And many of us do have Microsoft virus protection on our computer. And, those guys at Microsoft, they're pretty smart. But they are not smart enough to know that your personal computer has a virus.
Exactly.
And they are not going to provide you white glove assistance by contacting you personally, individually, to try to get it fixed. So they call and want $129, so they're going to collect your credit card number.
Right.
Then they direct you to go to a website that you're going to click on the link and let them take over your computer, and you'll never get control of it again. And if you've done your taxes on your computer or you have other important information, they're going to be able to pull that.
Right.
If
You didn't do that, did you?
No,
You
I didn't do that.
She almost.
Sorry, Michelle.
If you do your taxes on your computer, do not save those files on your computer. Save them on a removable.
She did
Do not
do
keep important information like that on a computer that someone
she
can get
did. I
access
see
to.
her. I see
Okay,
her.
my audience, except for Michelle, has totally lost control here. I'm just they're making.
What I had one. What about those calls where they want you to say yes or no? They're asking you questions. They're wanting you to say yes.
I had one of those at the Attorney General's office.
Oh my goodness! They
Where
called
they
the wrong number.
called and they said that they were with the supply department. Mm-hmm. And I guess they assumed we had a huge office and I wouldn't know, whether they were telling the truth or not. And they needed me to go to the nearest printer in the office and give them the model number and the
and they send
serial
you those
number.
toners.
And they wanted to send, and then they wanted to make sure I said yes, and then they'll record me saying
Exactly,
yes, and then they'll play
exactly.
that back and try to
Any
demand that we
questions?
pay for it. If someone sends you items like that you've not ordered, you do not have to pay for them.
No.
And please, our older listeners out there, if someone's sending you address labels, the prayer catchers, the Indian reservation blankets, rosaries, you do not have to feel obligated to send that charity or that group money or a donation. Do not send them. Actually, if you send them money, you have told them that there's a person on the end of that address who's willing to write a check and send money, so they'll just sell your information off to other charities and other groups. So just because someone sends you an item does not mean that you have to turn around and send them money for it.
Yeah, wow. We still have so much more to ask Michelle, but we're going to, before we take a break, we are going to call Jennifer Martin with the Chocolate Blues, which I was trying to think of a good segue, and I was thinking, this is not a scam. The Chocolate Blues is actually happening, and it's happening 2 weeks from today. We will be doing our show on location, Jennifer to the rescue. So I am actually calling Michelle, and we're going to see, not Michelle, Michelle's in the house. We're going to call Jennifer. There's so many Jennifers out there. I'm glad your name's not Jennifer, Michelle. But anyway, Jennifer Martin, we are calling her right now. And the Chocolate Blues is actually going to be at Primo's South. October 9th. And, hello, are you there?
I'm here. How are you?
We are good. You're talking to a bunch of ladies that want to know all about the Indy South Chocolate Blues, Jennifer Martin. So tell us about it. Yes. When is it?
It's going to be October the 9th, which is a Thursday, and it starts at 1 p.m. until 7 p.m. And, of course, this event days or business hours and a after hours just in case you need to leave the office and then come. That's okay. So, October the 9th.
Jennifer, I can't believe it, but my daughter's beeping in. I will let her just call, and I'll talk to her later. Jennifer,
Does she know it's Thursday?
She doesn't know it's Thursday. She doesn't listen to my show. What's wrong with her? But Jennifer, so they can come and go, and Jennifer to the rescue will be there. I think Mary Pat McKee with the Indie Boomer that follows us will also be there live. I think we're all going to be in the house because in the Primo South. Oh, and that's right, Barb Hook will be there too. Barb Hook is here today, and we're trying to let everybody know her show is debuting next Wednesday. But that's not the point. Okay, it is the point, but not right now. Okay, so it is from 1 to 7.
It's also very exciting. I get it.
Yeah, we're getting all kinds of good stuff. Yeah,
everybody's going to be there.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a great show, and I know the tagline is where sweet business connections are made. So there's something about chocolate, right?
Absolutely.
Just
of course, if you want to get a little bit of a sugar high, this is a great place to go. Every exhibitor that's going to be there has chocolate at their table, and all different kinds of chocolate. So if you like a little bit of this or a little bit of that, if you just want to do a little sample, we'll have so many different kinds there. So taste the chocolate while you're talking to the businesses and learning a little bit about what you do and how you guys can work together and develop strategic partners, fantastic connections. direct business, of course, will come from this. Always encourage to be connecting with people for business, etc. But especially the networking, that pure networking aspect. So just have fun with it. And of course,
Just
we're going to have live placements there too. Just to kind of have a fun atmosphere. Business networking can be really boring sometimes. So.
Yes, it can be, but not with chocolate. And there's also blues music, and I think I'm actually going to do a little singing. I'm not sure. I think that's the plan, anyway.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. And if they go to festival.com, the information is there about this particular Indie South Chocolate Blues, which is actually the first time they've done it on the South Side, right?
This is the first for the South Side, so I'm really excited about that too, because we've got a lot of businesses that are really not used to getting as much exposure, I guess, because of traveling sometimes to networking. But yeah, the South Side it's got a lot of great businesses there that really want to meet you and to meet the others that are coming. And of course, come down to the event or around or wherever you are in the Indianapolis area, coming down to the South Side, of course, getting some new exposure there.
So, okay, so we want to get everybody there, and is there any vendor space left? Any booth space left? That's 2 weeks from today.
Yes, I have about 10 spots left.
So they need to go to Biz Festival. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, if anybody wants one, they need to sign up ASAP.
ASAP.
Talk to me, make sure that that's still available, because we are brand exclusive. For example, I know with you and Jennifer directly, there's, I think, send out cards.
Yep.
Also represented that. I've had send out cards representatives contact me, and of course, because I already have a send out card trust, you're the only one. So,
Well, thank you.
questions or concerns, if you're listening or if you're there, with Jennifer, if you have any questions about whether or not you're able to participate, if you're interested, you can always call me and follow up on that, and I can verify.
So they need to go to Biz. Well, and our reception's getting bad here, Jennifer, so I am going to let you go, but they need to check out Biz Festival, and it is on October 9th, Thursday, October 9th, from 1 to 7 at Primo's on the south side, and that is 2615 National Avenue in Indianapolis. Thank you, Jennifer, and let's plan to talk next week, too, okay?
Contacting you. So whether they sent you a letter or an email address or called you, somehow they've received your contact information somehow. So lately, we hear a lot about data breaches. So yesterday, Jimmy John's restaurants announced that they had a data breach. So a lot of times the information is obtained illegally. They've hacked into a database, they've pulled out as much information as they can, and it varies. It could be your name, your address. It might include your telephone number. It might include a social security number. It might include an email address. So our information is out there on many databases, just waiting for someone to get a hold of it. But also, believe it or not, fraudsters buy your information. They don't always just steal it.
So they actually
or they trade it. They trade another scammer, and they trade contact information back and forth. So I want to share some good tips with your listeners about how to avoid getting on these call lists. So the ones that are hacked, the databases that are hacked, you really don't have a lot of control over that, but you do have control over what information you give out to individuals. So let's talk about magazine subscriptions. A lot of your listeners probably subscribe to magazines. A magazine company, for example, mainly needs your address, your mailing address. They're going to mail that magazine to you every month, and you want it to get in your mailbox. They do not need your telephone number, and they do not need your email address. So there's a reason why Better Homes and Gardens costs $19 for 24 issues. You know that they're not making much money on that subscription. They're making more money on selling off your personal information. So the less information that you give is the less information they can sell off. There's always on those subscription cards, they try to survey you and ask you about your hobbies or your interests. If you like photography, gardening, hunting, golf, do not check off any of those boxes. Every little item that you give to them is another bit of information they can sell off about you. I also encourage you to not give them your first name. Only list your first initial and your last name. When they purchase a list and it only says M. Mayer, when they call me, they won't know whether to say is Mr. Mayer available or Mrs. Mayer available. And they don't have my first name to Google or try to get more information about me. If you take several magazines, consider signing your pets up for those magazines. So Better Homes and Gardens, your cat Fluffy might like Better Homes and Gardens. Maybe Fido would get Golf Digest. And then you can start monitoring when Fido starts getting a telephone call or Fluffy gets a telephone call, then you know exactly which magazine company sold your information. But again, try not to give your email address or your telephone number to a magazine company. They do not need that information. If they want to send you a bill or a renewal notice, they will mail that to you in the mail. They do not need those other bits of information. Also, when you're out attending expos or fairs and you're filling out door price slips, I see lots of people bringing their address labels with them and just slapping them on these door price entry cards. No. Again, do not give that merchant your first name. Only put your first initial and your last name, and do not give them both of your telephone numbers. Just give them one of your telephone numbers. And while we're talking about telephone numbers, I want to warn your listeners, lately we have seen where individuals are getting some strange calls to their cell phones. So do not give a vendor or a business both your landline, which is your residence number, and your cell phone number. If you only give them your cell phone number, do not list it as a mobile or a cell phone number. Put that down as your home number. I actually talked to several people at the Indiana State Fair this year. They would come to our booths, and they were talking about how their own telephone number would come across the caller ID on their cell phone. And, of course, it made them want to answer it, or a telephone number of a neighbor would come up. We actually talked to an older woman up in Merrillville at a retirement community. She had an apartment in this retirement community. She was out running errands one day, and she received a call on her cell phone, and it was her own apartment telephone number calling her. So she answered it, and they said, "Where are you?" And she said, "Well, who is this?" And they said, "Don't worry about it. We are inside your apartment." And they were trying to con money out of her. They were not in her apartment. They had hacked into a database, but they know that this is her home number. They have that technology that I talked about earlier where they can change the caller ID and make it say whatever they want. And they're just trying to scam her and trying to get her to send them money because she called the police and there was no sign that anyone was in her apartment. So again, control what bits of information you're sharing with these third parties because you don't know who's going to get a hold of that information. Also, be very careful what you're sharing on social network sites. Do not put your birth date out on the Facebook page. I know you want all those birthday greetings on your birth date, but that's information that you should not be sharing with strangers. If it's important for you to get Facebook greetings, just make up a birthday and put that on there, and then your real family and friends who know your birthday will wish you a happy birthday, and then another day each year, your Facebook friends will wish you a happy birthday. So especially don't put your year that you were born. That's too much personal information.
I'm trying to think what I did on my like, oh my God.
She put her entire birthday and year.
Yep. I got my year.
Okay, just ignore them. Michelle, continue.
But you just never know who's going to get access to your personal information. Sure. And again, we just saw all these data breaches with Jimmy John's, Home Depot recently, Michael's stores, and Target. So you never know how someone's going to store your information, how effective that's going to be once you give it to them, and who's going to get a hold of it. And I mentioned earlier, it's really easy to just get some little bits of information and put that in a browser search like Google and come up with all sorts of other connections to the person that you might contact and try to con. And you want the least amount of information possible out there. If you do fall victim to any of the scams that I've talked about today, or you want to get more information, please go to our website at indianaconsumer.com. We've got lots of good information. You can feel free to call our office anytime if you feel like you want to talk to someone about a strange call that you received or some sort of offer. Our telephone number is 1-800-382-5516. And I know that anytime you get contacted by a scammer, you're already stressed. You're stressed if you send the money because you're worried about losing the money. You're stressed if you don't send the money because you're worried about losing out on the opportunity. And I want to commend Jennifer for bringing this information to her listeners. Jennifer to the rescue. I think you've probably rescued a lot of individuals today by sharing this important information, and I really want to encourage everyone to pass it on to as many people as they can, because if you're educated ahead of time, then you're empowered to make the right decision, and you're not stressed when you're giving up an opportunity. You're going to hang up that phone, you're going to rip up that letter or delete that email and know that you're making the right decision.
Wow, thank you. I think that's pretty cool. She was talking about me. I'm just really happy that we were able to secure you for today, because I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Now, I am kind of serious once in a while. I'm not just joking around. Michelle, one more time to connect with you. And I was thinking, I know that Barb has already said, Barb Hook here with Hook Connect on the Hook next week. She is going to put some stuff on your Facebook, your whatever, so if they can, we're all going to, I know I'm going to put the numbers that she just gave me in the indianaconsumer.com as a resource, saying, it makes sure that people know they can go to jennifertotherescue.com. They can go to hookconnect.com, right? Mm-hmm. And Renee Gates, I think she's going to take care of that too, right? You already put it out there. I've already seen the post. Yeah. But Michelle, the information one more time to contact your
Our
office.
website would be indianaconsumer.com.
Yes.
And our telephone number is 1-800-382-5516.
Awesome. Barb, because you're going to be on next week, you've been asking a lot of great questions on the air, but also on our breaks. Do you have any other questions for Michelle?
I don't think so. I'm excited to have someone. She's going to make a connection for me so I can get someone on my show in December. And we'll focus on bad contractors and what happens to the consumer. And I think that's very important.
That was one of the first things you started talking about, and I laughed in the first segment because I knew that Barb was going to find a connection. Isn't that what a great name for a company? Renee, did you have any?
You're hilarious.
People listen to me because I am not pretending to be anybody I'm not. I am Jennifer to the rescue. And we are just so grateful. Did you have a question, Renee?
No, I did not.
But isn't this amazing that you
amazing information? I learned so much.
Yes, we are just, I'm like, I don't even know where to begin in all the notes that I took. But the two things you said, if it's legitimate, you're never going to be asked to send money. That was, you
Absolutely.
talked about two things. And the other one was, I never knew this, but I don't know if I've ever played a lottery or anything in another country, but illegal to play or win a contest in another country. I never knew that.
It makes sense. It does make sense, but again, you have to have someone tell you that. And believe me, Jennifer, these callers are very good at what they do. And even though your listeners are armed with all of this good information, if they get one of these calls, it's just difficult to not take the bait, because these callers are very good at convincing individuals to go ahead and send the money. They always have an answer for every question that you might have. And it's just so important. If you know someone who's a victim of a con, or whether it's with a legitimate business owner, and I'm using my little air quote here. If it's somebody that we can contact, we will do our best to, if you file a consumer complaint with our office, to contact them and try to remedy the situation. But if it's a con where someone's overseas, there's not really much we can do. But we still want to talk to them because we want to make sure they're not re-victimized, because we see over and over again where someone's lost a bunch of money and they've discovered that they're a victim, and the con artists know that the gig's up, and then they recontact them, or they have their buddy recontact them and then pretend to be the FBI or someone who's going to help them recover. So we see the recovery scams.
Jeez.
So anytime that you're a victim, or you know someone who is a victim, you really need to contact our office so that we can provide you with the support tools that you need to recover and to prevent any further victimization. And the best thing you can do is disconnect that telephone number right away. And a lot of our older citizens, they've had their telephone numbers for 70, 80 years. They do not want to do that. But that is really the best thing to do to make sure that they're not being contacted by the same individuals who have already stolen everything from them. And believe me, they stop at nothing. Once they get your savings account, they convince the citizens to cash in their retirement accounts. They walk them through the steps for putting liens on their property or their vehicles, or taking out cash advances on credit cards. So please talk to your older relatives, because a lot of times you're left with a big mess with their estate once they pass away, because there's nothing left, but then they also owe a bunch of money on top of it, and it is a mess, and nobody wants to leave a mess like that to their loved ones. So it's all about communication, staying on top, but also just sharing this information so someone knows not to send any money to begin with.
Oh, my goodness. One of the reasons that we thought this would be a good time to bring this to the forefront is as the holidays are approaching, there's more and more, I'm sure you see a rise in that kind of thing. So, IndianaConsumer.com and 1-800-382-5516 to get a hold of Michelle's office at the Indiana Attorney General's office, and that is the Consumer Protection. And just as we close, and Mary Pat McKee's coming up with the Indie Boomer.
Yep.
I think Barb's going to hang around for a little bit of that. But we're going to end with our theme song. And everybody has said that they are happy to be part of it,
Even
right?
Barb, yep.
Even Barb. Michelle was over here singing it, too. She has done her wonderful job today. And we thank you very much for being here. And it's a wonderful service that you
Thank you
provide.
so much for having me.
You're very welcome.
I had one question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Did she mention dating?
The sweetheart scams.
Oh my
I'm sorry. I just had to say that because you mentioned holidays and people get lonely.
Yes. And that's a lot of times individuals are meeting online. So that's a really good thing to bring up as well. Yes, we see a lot of victims with sweetheart scams where you meet someone online and they're really not who they claim to be. A lot of times they're young men that are sitting in an internet cafe over in Nigeria and they're pretending to be a woman.
I brought that. I'm sorry, Barb.
No. I don't think.
But I just wanted that just came up, and I wanted to mention that.
Is do not send money to strangers, and even though you think you've been corresponding with someone for several weeks or several months, you still do not know. And we've seen all the stories on MTV on the famous Catfish television show, and it's very, very common these days, and you can pretend to be someone that you're not over the telephone and through the
and you're so in love, and then you send the money to get them here. Oh, you did?
No.
Like they would send them, they say, well, we want to come to visit you on the holidays, and you buy them a ticket, or you send them money to get them a ticket, and
there's always a reason why they can't make the trip. They fall and break their leg in the airport when they're going through security, or their mother passes away and they have to stay back for the funeral, or they can't get the time off work. There's always some reason.
And you know what? This could go on, and I'm sure your job just never ends, Michelle. No, that's a great thing to bring up. Okay, we are going to have to wrap it up, though, and thank you again, Michelle. Thank you for Renee. Thank you, Barb Hook on the hook. And Michelle, do you want to hit it off? No, you do. I
I didn't tell you that you were going to have to give us the note, did I?
Because Jennifer's not good at that.
No, I am too. Okay, well, thank you very much for tuning in this week. We will be back next week. Hopefully we'll get Michelle back in because I'm sure her job is ever changing and as the things come about. So we're going to try this. It goes, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long.